Hi, everybody. Well, welcome to one of the first DeSci panels. I definitely was really looking forward to starting the movement and really shining a light on this new area of crypto. But just to kind of like get an idea, like if you could just clap if you really understand what DeSci is. We have like one or two. All right, this is actually very good because I'm gonna first turn it over to Max, and he's going to give us like a quick overview of like what DeSci is and where it's at, and that will frame sort of the panel that we're going to jump into. So without further ado, this is Max, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about DeSci. And there's a presentation that's going to be playing on those two panels.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. Yes. So, I'm Max, and I'm by training a scientist. I'm working on aging research, trying to slow aging, and I'm involved with like Vita Dow, which is like this DAO that funds aging research and tries to accelerate breakthroughs in this area through DeSci. So maybe let's start first. Who of you here is a scientist? Just that I can give like an idea. 2, 3, 4 people. So not many, that's good. And from the outside, science always like looks like this smooth machine and does cool stuff. But I think the reality is like more that science is nowadays like very stagnant, and you have like a lot of ivory towers, like those governmental and academic institutions don't do the best thing anymore for science and thereby for humanity. You have like a lot of like misaligned incentives that like writing a paper or publishing is becoming like more important than actually like really good science. Not enough risky stuff is being funded. It's like only incremental steps that science is improving. Often 50 to 80% of the science is actually cannot be reproduced, meaning that if you actually read a scientific study, you probably first have to think it's wrong, it's fraud, it cannot be trusted. And then it's slow and expensive, it's not transparent. And at the same time, the journalists charge a lot of money and act as gatekeepers and determine what science is supposed to be good and what science is not supposed to be good. And all in total, this leads like to very slow scientific progress. And I think one of the solutions for that will be like decentralized science. And you could look at decentralized science being just like a next iteration of open science, but this time with all the power of Web3 and blockchain at the background and the engine to really like propel us forward in a new era of scientific discovery. And it's trying to do that by like creating better incentive systems for all of the scientists, giving them better rewards, being monetary or like cloud-wise, but also like improve funding mechanisms to like really get funding going fast, that it doesn't take like a year to get a grant, but maybe like a month, that the scientists actually can start working on science and not writing grants and academic papers. And then also make sure that the data that actually produced can be reproduced and that it's like really true science that stands ground to like all the testing, and that all the resources and the publishing, that everything can also be like harnessed by like citizen scientists that are really interested in science and want to help building a better future by keeping it transparent and thereby really accelerating scientific discovery. So DeSci is maybe like a year, 1.5 years old, and currently you have like roughly 115 projects there, and it's like becoming more by the week. I think like half a year ago you maybe had like 30 companies or like projects on the slides, and like shout out to Ultra Rare Bio who like curated that and updating it regularly, so you can really see the DeSci movement is like building like a lot of momentum with like more and more projects coming in, trying to increase funding, make better funding, better publishing, but also like some art things like science, NFTs, and the like. At Vita Dow, we like focus on aging, and the reason is aging is like a humanitarian disaster. If you look at it, most diseases that are currently like uncured, like the cancers, the Alzheimer's, the neurodegenerative diseases, the last 50 years, a lot of money went to them with like almost zero progress. We have like nothing that works against Alzheimer, a little bit for cancer, but cardiovascular disease is like still the largest killer. And the reason is because we're trying to fight symptoms instead of root causes. And for all of those diseases, aging is the root cause. So if we actually could slow down aging, we would be able like to prevent these diseases, which would be like very helpful like for like demographics, but also like for governmental spending. And another like peculiar thing is, even if you would cure all cancers, it might add 2-3 years to your life of the average person. versus if you can slow down aging, it would add more like 30 years to your life, because even if you cure cancer, 2 years later, probably cardiovascular disease will kill you. So, and the funny thing is that that's not science fiction. We already know in animals we can increase their lifespan, health span by a lot. We have like 100 different therapies that work in animals. We currently translate that into humans. In the US and Singapore, we have clinical trials which tries to make those same drugs usable for humans, that humans can live longer and healthier. And that's like a very new paradigm of the 21st century, that we fight the root cause of disease and not the symptoms. So, and a lot of crypto thought leaders are actually like excited about it and put like their voice and their money behind it. Like Balaji talks about it frequently. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong just put $100 million into a company that he started. Vitalik is like very open about that we should probably like cure aging and the like. And it's probably also like a good indication of like which of the crypto thought leaders are like good and have a good reputation. And when they get behind it, that it has longevity, because the FTX guy didn't support longevity, and we all know how that ended up. So maybe that's like just like a rule of thumb. If they're into longevity, they probably have like the prosperity of humanity in the long term inside. But so how do you advance that from a DeSci standpoint? Science, we need to treat the causes, not the symptoms. And in academia, a lot of those valid projects or IP that's produced is like guarded in a vault and it's not getting out. So if we could get it out, that would be very helpful. And then biotech IP in general is like very illiquid. So it's usually owned by like a big pharma or a big university, but it's like not decentralized and not a community is like making use of it. So what we're trying to do is like decentralized community-driven development of therapeutics. Where we can like find new technologies much faster than in the traditional way, because we source like a global talent pool from all over the world, where a lot of smart people have good ideas, but some of them like just are not at the right spot to actually bring it to market. And then we combine that with like novel crypto mechanisms for financing these projects globally. And that's what Vita Dow is doing. It's like the first, or like the leading bio DAO. We have like 8,000 people on Discord. We funded in the last year 14 projects, all targeted at reversing aging. We have like 5 million more in treasury right now. We just got like more money like from a few big crypto funds, but also like from Pfizer Ventures. So we are really like merging like traditional pharma in a way, take the good things from there with crypto and take the good things from there and trying to combine that to build like a good future for biotech. We're usually like the DAO with like the first money in. We fund this value of that, the last 1 or 2 experiments at a university. We get all the IP for that, and then we start building companies out of that in the future. And all the money that is produced to those companies goes back into the DAO that we can fund more cool research. And in a way, how we go about that, we have like people all over the world in different universities, different countries that source projects for us. We then have like a science and IP team of experts that evaluates them. Then we have like a governance token where the community in general is like voting on it, which projects to fund, which project not to fund. And then if we say, okay, we want to fund this project, we mint it as an IP NFT, like an intellectual property NFT, where like all the IP data is like on this, attached to this NFT. It can be split and fractionalized, so you could think instead of like one big pharma company holding all the IP, now you have like 100,000 people owning part of this IP. If the IP becomes more valuable, the price increases, everybody is happy, but also like the decision making of this IP, what should be happening with it? Should we like really monetize it, or should we actually like the therapeutics, should we produce them for almost for free, that actually humanity is benefiting from it? So that's our mission. Obviously like DAOs in general, we have like superior mechanisms in a way. Industry leaders like big pharma is recognizing that and joining forces with us. And obviously this Vita Token, we have like really decentralized government and involvement of like a community of scientists, non-scientists, and the like. So you should, or you could hold the Vita Token to participate in the DAO and shape with us like the future of like biotech IP and DeSci in general. And we hope that we can like just snowball that and like become bigger and fund more great research, make more breakthroughs in science, that we can all live longer and healthier, and maybe in 100 years have like a Dcentral conference where everybody is like as young as we are now. And with that, I think we go back to the panel. Thank you.
Right. Thanks for that overview, Max. Give it up for Max. So decentralized science can be a lot of different things. And what I want to do today is give you a full spectrum view of what some of those projects look like. So now you have Vita Dow, which you can use to like fund projects, but there's a couple of more different players in the game. And as Max mentioned, this is 100+ projects and growing. So if you look at a segment of crypto and you're like, well, what's next? I'll tell you what's next, DeSci. And with that, I would like to introduce a couple of more panelists. We have Aaron and we have Slava. If you want to just give like a quick like intro, who you are, maybe how you got introduced to DeSci, and a little bit about the projects that you're working on, a couple of lines about the projects.
Absolutely. So I'm Erin McGinnis. I currently am the community manager at Molecule, which has produced IP NFTs, a funding mechanism to help advance scientific research. And then also at BioXYZ, which is a Bio Dow or Biotech Dow Accelerator program. So helping to kind of support continuing advancing and kind of expanding this whole DeSci landscape. My original background is in neuroscience, and then I fell down the tech startup rabbit hole, got spit out into Web3 and blockchain, and really came across DeSci as the space to be able to have immense impact on every single one of us, and also a perfect intersection of my background. So really happy to be here and sharing it with you all.
Thanks.
Hi guys, so I'm Sava Kudamelitis. It's a Greek name, but I'm from New Zealand, so a bit probably further than most. So I'm working with Vita Dow actually on their legal team, working on their IP NFT framework, but my own project is called Crowdfunded Cures, and we're looking at creating basically a business model for open source medicine. So things like funding off-patent drugs like ketamine to treat depression, or ketogenic diet to treat cancer. So we're looking at creating, say, impact markets for funding this kind of research. And yeah, there's a lot of, I think, cultural reasons why crypto is a really good area to do this sort of thing. There are a lot of problems around incentive misalignment. There's a lot of issues and gaps in the traditional patent system. So, you know, using IP NFTs, using these things called hypercerts or impact certificates, we can actually fix a lot of these misaligned incentives and create like billions and billions of dollars worth of value. You know, imagine if a diet could treat cancer. I mean, how much is that actually worth to society? It's worth billions of dollars. And unfortunately, under the current IP system, there's no way to capture that value. So I think with crypto and this incentive alignment and the ability to coordinate and cooperate and, you know, solve this, the whole Moloch, you know, basically being able to coordinate better, I think this is what crypto's about, and I'm super bullish about DeSci, and I hope you guys, get a bit pumped about the whole concept.
That is good to hear. And I think we've articulated a couple of different problems, but I also want to throw it to you, Aaron. Is there any problems that you see that DeSci can really help solve or that you have observed? Because a lot of people, if you say oh, science is too slow, they're like, well, I can't keep up with how fast tech is evolving now. But in the scientific community, there can be a lot of cases where progress is not what it really appears.
For me, I think a lot of it can really be connected back to translation. In traditional institutional science, a lot of research is conducted and then it sits in a journal and collects digital dust and nobody ever sees it. It doesn't have impact on the end people, and maybe the research projects that were funded were not the right research projects that should actually really be done. And by using these different collectives through DAOs that are supported by blockchain technology to bring everything kind of on-chain and transparent, we're able to move into a stage where researchers can get feedback on their different proposals, where researchers can then share knowledge that they're acquiring mid-experiment instead of having to wait down the line once it's published to maintain the different knowledge that they're acquiring. So in addition to some of the different incentive kind of structures and creating that alignment, it's also an alignment of people and that knowledge too.
I think that's important, that alignment of not only just the funding, but also the transparency of the work being done with said funding, right? Because a lot of that, same problems we can see like with charity of like people donating lots of money to solve various initiatives or various cure cancer, cure whatever the flavor of the day, problem is, but there's just not really a lot of accountability, and that's something that Web3 could definitely bring to that equation. Is there anything else, Max, that that really stands out to you about the DeSci movement that is an advantage over some of the traditional structures that we have?
So I'm wandering in both worlds, in the academic world and in the DeSci world, and what I feel is like that DeSci can bring, and it's like more the spirit in a way also like of open software, is like better collaboration, because in academia you have like a lot of people with like big egos and they want to work together with their buddies, right? And they have like whatever those 5 people, whatever, publish all the papers in like an area and decide what is cool, what is not cool. And I think through that way of like in a way centralization in those areas, that just is very hard for like new incumbents to come in, right? And propose like novel ideas. And I think in DeSci it's like it's very easy. It's like not very easy. At least you can come up with ideas and you bring them out and people will discuss it with you in public, right? And you can see the conversation, how it pans out and the pros and the cons, right? And then you can also like have people to be accountable for what they think is true, but then also like probably when more smart people get together and discuss something, maybe the project becomes even better, more impactful, and probably like more precise of what is being done, that then creates ultimately better science.
Yes, and I think not only from the science aspect, but just like from different dimensions of science, right? So we have like, in the case of Vita Dow, we have this longevity research going on, but we also have like biotech and drug discovery. And Slava, I don't know if you really articulated a little bit more about your project, the crowdfunded cure, but did you want to like talk a little bit about some the issues with various drug discovery and some of the resistance that comes up with drug repurposing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the problem with drug development right now is that you guys might have heard this number, but it costs around $1 billion to make a new drug. And that's because it takes about 10 to 15 years. You've got to basically screen thousands of compounds and go through phase 1 safety, phase 2 efficacy, and phase 3 is kind of like go-to-market clinical trials. And these things, cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and they've got a very high chance of failure. So there's a lot of high risk, and it's not something that governments do. So governments are not going to spend $1 billion on making a new drug, so they push it off onto private industry. The problem is that private industry only cares if you've got a patent. If you can enforce a monopoly price over your chemical, then you do have something. But it's like, normal scientists know this, and they get super frustrated by the fact that they can't get any funding. If they're looking at a generic drug, an off-patent drug, like, you guys might have heard about like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, right? This is kind of like a political thing. But there is this drug called fluvoxamine, which actually does work and treats COVID, and there's been a Brazilian clinical trial, 10,000 people. It reduces chance of death by like 90%, and your chance of hospitalization by 30%. You can look it up, fluvoxamine. And basically, there's no private incentive to take that through FDA. When they try to push it through the FDA pushed them back and said, hey, well, we can't really trust this Brazilian trial. And they only really spent like $10 million on it or $5 million. So it's just peanuts compared to the hundreds of millions that you need. But what crypto can do, I think, is just provide access to capital, democratize access to capital, and then correct those misaligned incentives to provide like billions of dollars worth of value, because this drug, fluvoxamine, is equivalent to another drug called molnupiravir that Merck made, and it's a new drug and it's patented, and BARDA, it's a US government agency, paid $1.2 billion for this drug, and it's just as effective as a drug that costs like, a fraction of that, like $10 a script.
Yeah. So there's a lot of middlemen in science too, right? So every industry can really benefit in some ways from the transparency of the disintermediation of some of the third parties that don't need to be there for sure. But one of the issues, and I think that this is important to address in the DeSci movement, is that when I asked like how many scientists and how many people like really understood DeSci, not a lot of hands went up. And let me throw this to the panel. Do you really have to be like an academic or a scientist to really become a part of DeSci? And like how open and available is it to the people maybe that are in the audience that are learning about crypto and Web3, and maybe they have a couple of NFTs, maybe they don't, maybe they just trade Bitcoin, maybe they don't. And DeSci seems like this new thing that they could possibly get involved with. But how easy is it to do, and what types of reasons would you give for people to be interested in DeSci? We'll just start down the panel.
So I think it's actually quite interesting that like a lot of academic scientists are rather skeptical of DeSci to some extent, and like a lot of people in DeSci are like people who really like science and love science, maybe studied science and worked in science, but not necessarily come from the academic field. There are like a few, of course, the avant-garde if you want, but you don't have to be a scientist. There are like a lot of other things that people can do, right, that scientists don't know, right? Be it like coming up with like new ideas, like spreading the word, like almost becoming like a fan base of science, right? And making science sexy again for like the entire population, for the entire planet, right? And yeah, I think it needs everybody's work.
One thing that I think DeSci desperately needs is people who aren't these sciencey, tech, nerdy people. One of the reasons why many of you may not have heard about DeSci is because we don't have quite as many marketers, business development people, people who can translate some of this different knowledge or technologies into terms that are friendly and easy to engage with for the masses, people who are good at community across all of the different sectors and personas that we integrate with, which based on the different communities that are served by these bio DAOs, that's everyone. So everyone is invited, and we would love to have you.
I'm hearing a little call for community, so if anybody wants to give us some likes and, yeah, of course. Slava, did you have anything to add about why should people really get involved with DeSci? From your
well, I mean, I think it's about incentive misalignment. Essentially, you've got the smartest people almost in the world. Like scientists just do so much work. They go to uni for like 10 years or 15 years or whatever, do these research and get really paid like almost nothing pretty much until like, maybe they're 40, maybe they'll get like a tenure. Like that's kind of what everyone's going for. And then on the other hand, you can go into kind of big pharma, and maybe there's only really a few cities in the world that you can really make money doing like a pharma. So there's a lot of issues around, incentive misalignment. And yet like basically everything you see around you was created by scientists, at some stage, basic research, science. So, it's extremely important. We've got massive problems, global warming, health, aging population, like the baby boomers are going to be like 80, 10 years, like, seems like a lot of these things can be solved through technology, through funding better technology, through funding better science. So, it should be something that everyone is interested in, and there is definitely space for everyone to get involved. And even if you're not a scientist yourself, you can buy a science NFT that supports researchers, and you can see that transparently. You can see, hey, my money is going to the smart contract, it's going to be paid out for this scientific research. So there's definitely ways to get involved, but you should go and ask Erin, she'll tell you all about it.
Yeah. Think of it like, Kickstarter for science. Like, what kind of ideas do we all have that we want to see, and could we put it in these types of systems that are going to generate us real results that everybody can sort of track and become a part of? It's really amazing. And being involved with Dcentral, I really wanted to make sure there was a science panel, because to me this is like really at the cutting edge of crypto culture and how you can get involved, and we have a real use case for crypto. We're running out of time for the panel, but just kind of closing thoughts. where would people go to kind of get involved, to learn more about what you do, and maybe give us a couple of maybe predictions about 2023, where you see sort of DeSci going from your perspective. And I know it's different from each person on the panel.
So if you want to learn more and like listening, I think Molecule has the DeSci Podcast, which is like very good and informative. What I would say is that one thing is that might be different with DeSci than other crypto projects is science takes longer, right? You cannot like very hype up quickly or get like a result in like in a few weeks, right? So think of like DeSci maybe like the long-term mode of crypto, with like where the rewards of it will be like maybe 5, 6, 7 years in the future, and not like 5 or 7 weeks.
A few places to be able to get involved are BioXYZ, which is the Vita Dow Accelerator, and right now we have 4 DAOs in that who would love to have new contributors in it across women's reproductive loss, health, hair loss, synthetic biology, and psychedelic research. If you're in the social sciences, I would point you to Talent DAO, who has a whole journal platform and good representation here as well. If you're interested in the technology, IPNFTs at Molecule, there's a lot of different ways to get involved. If you're an event manager, get involved with DeSci Global. Just kind of lean in, and we'll lean back in to you and your interests. And I'm at Erin McGinnis on all socials. Would love to point you in the right direction.
Yeah, just basically Google DeSci and have a look around. It should be pretty apparent. But yeah, Vita Dow, I think, is probably the only kind of biggest true DAO, and it's really funding longevity research, which is a sort of fringe idea in the scientific community. And so combining that with crypto, I think, is very interesting. Vitalik, a lot of the big sort of whales in the space, Balaji, Han Benet from Filecoin, they're very, very interested in this idea of funding science as a public good. Obviously you can check out our project, Crowdfunded Cures. We've got a Discord, and just sort of have a look around. There's that sheet by Ultra Rare, which basically has all of the projects in the different areas. So yeah, there's a bunch of things to choose from.
Well, thanks for all the panelists, and thanks for you guys to listen to DeSci. And we hope that you go and check them out, check out their projects. We'll be having more DeSci panels in the future. Hopefully, we'll have Dcentral DeSciCon, something like that in the future. We'll see how it goes. But thanks. All right.